This isn't another YouTube channel about million-dollar cars that no one can afford. We sit there and drool over our keyboards while watching YouTube, watching these supercars do burnouts and fly down the runway. But we never actually think to ourselves, hey, I want to buy that car. In this series, we will be reviewing cars that you can afford, you can drive, and you can park in your middle-class garage. Welcome to the very first episode of Middle Class Garage. You can buy many cars in the range of $2,000. You could buy an old Mercury, a Ford Taurus, or maybe even a Toyota Camry. But what if you want more out of your $2,000? What if you want an ultimate driving machine? The BMW E34i. The first way to describe this BMW E34i would be compared to a cougar. Never acting her age, and she is always looking for younger cars to play with. This is my personal vehicle, and I only paid $1,400 for this car, and yes, it has had its problems, being a 26-year-old car. But when you put your foot down and the car goes, you can't help but to get a smile on your face. And the sound that straight six makes is incredible. It's got the 3.5 liter inline six. The engine number would be the M30 engine. They stopped making this model with this engine in, I believe, 1992. Please correct me if I'm mistaken. It's either 92 or 93. And that's because they replaced it with the bigger V8 models, the 530i and the 540i, which is the monster. The suspension on this car is very well built. Despite its heavy roll, it is very good for absorbing bumps, and it makes the drive extremely luxurious and comfortable despite its age. And when the car is cruising around, it's extremely quiet. Cruising down the highway, this car is extremely quiet, and for the extremely unaerodynamic front end of this classic styling, it's very quiet when it comes to wind noise. I would describe the driving experience of this car as pure. And what I mean by that is that there is no driving aids getting in the way of your driving. A lot of newer cars today, the steering doesn't really feel connected. It feels like you're playing a video game in an arcade where you're racing, and the steering wheel is just loosely wiggling back and forth, but somehow the wheels are turning. In this car, the steering's very tight and very well connected to the driver. It makes you feel one with the car when you're driving it, which I love that. This car is extremely well rounded when it comes to drivability and everyday use. It's got 4 doors, 5 seats, it's got a big trunk, and when you need to step on the gas, it has no problem at all. I love the sound this engine makes. And yes, you can get a newer car for $2,000, but you're not going to find a newer car that drives and is just as good as this one. In new cars today, you have all these fancy screens and these fancy gauges, but you never have that feeling where it's just you in the road and you're just driving. There's always a distraction in the way. And I love that about this car. Some negatives about the car is it's a BMW. What I mean by that is parts. This car may be extremely reliable when it comes to just everyday driving, but when a part breaks, and as in all cars, a part's gonna break, it's expensive. It's really expensive. And when you're buying a car for $1,000 to $2,000, a $500 parts thrown in your face is gonna hurt. So don't buy this car if you can barely afford to spend $2,000. Expect to put a few $1,000s into it, but after you put that $2,000 into it, it's gonna run great, and it's gonna be in that sweet spot where just nothing breaks and you can just have fun with it for years on to come. Another nice thing about this car is because of the emblem on the hood and trunk, people think it's worth more than it is. I've had people ask me if I spent $10,000 on my car, which is ridiculous. One thing about this car is I've never met a single person who's owned one that hasn't regretted selling it. And whenever they see mine, I can just see the smile go on their face because they remember the days when they owned this car. And it's incredible that a car can make someone feel that way.